Geoff, there was a crisis situation in the recent past. Is that over now? Is it still there?
No, we think, whether you use the word crisis or whether there's a growing gap between people who we believe ought to be eligible for legal aid, that there's a significant gulf. And we say that more and more people are, as more resources are provided to police to basically prosecute, then more and more people are coming in front of the courts. The eligibility guidelines by Victorian legal aid are very stringent, so that effectively, unless there is a significant prospect of you being imprisoned, then legal aid funding is not made available. And it's in particular in this area, in terms of a multicultural issue, that we see many new Australians, and I was born up in a multicultural environment outside Shepparton, many new Australians who come here who are unfamiliar with our laws, who may not be facing imprisonment, but may be facing convictions which may impact upon their ability to obtain employment or to advance their prospects. And those people don't get access to legal aid, and yet we consider people such as many of those new Australians ought to have legal assistance where they can be represented by people who understand the system and understand the cultural environment from when many new Australians come from.
Of course. Telmo, do you like to add?
Excellent point, if I might say, in relation to the issues of culturally appropriate services. And may I underline and highlight again the point made by Geoff, which is about language, but it's also about culture. They're not necessarily the two things. I'm just reminded of a reference that had been given to us in the year 2000 by the then Attorney General, when I, with Mary Thompson, the member for Sandringham, a very able chair, we conducted jointly a reference and research into the issues of delivery of justice and how the new technologies at the time were able to assist overcome the potential barriers to access to justice. And what we identified in that time was that those who live in regional, rural areas, those that come from non-English speaking backgrounds or culturally diverse backgrounds, particularly women, were particularly disadvantaged because of the system unable to keep up with their particular demands, if I may say. And I see it in Sunshine Magistrates time and again. It's an issue of resources, always is, and never enough, if I may say, and I say that respectfully to all parties. But it's also an issue of training of the people that actually work, in my judgment, in the judiciary. It's an ongoing challenge, particularly because we have constantly coming new communities. So if I may say, dealing with Greeks, Italians or European background like me might not necessarily be the same as dealing with people coming from Africa or the subcontinent. They are constantly and ongoing challenges which I'm cognizant can be a problem in a situation where one is always struggling for more funds, but I cannot but encourage everybody to be very cognizant all of the time that if we are to be fair, we need to tackle these issues.
Geoff, we'll move on to the next topic, access to justice in rural, regional and remote areas.
Well, it's picking up part of what Telmo was talking about. I suppose I don't want to focus so much on regional or remote, but increasingly suburban areas as well. And I think there'd be common agreement that our legal system in terms of court facilities is rapidly reaching a stage where it's bursting at the seams. So that whether you look at, say, north, south, east and west, whether you look at Whittlesea or whether you look at Dandenong or whether you look at Wyndham or whether you look out further out along the Frankston Peninsula, most of the courthouses now are basically either old or outmoded in terms of their facilities. And I know Robert's been involved in a project which is a Wyndham Community Legal Precinct, where they're looking at more than just building a courthouse and a police station, but a raft of facilities which might include family counselling for family violence situations. There might be tenancy offices for people who are evicted, where we build facilities which are going to be more like a one-stop shop rather than just a courthouse which dispenses sentences.
Robert, what are your future plans in relation to this aspect?
Well, I think the idea of having an integrated centre, as Geoff refers to, is a very sensible one. We've seen too many problems in the past where, for example, the location of a court has been separated from a police station. A police station in a country town's been relocated to the edge of town. The court's in the middle of town. There's a lot of difficulty transferring offenders or accused persons to and
So
from
you have
court.
identified that
Yeah,
need.
so that's
and
been an issue. We've tackled that in Bendigo. We've reopened the old police station next to the courthouse, reduced the need for prisoner movement, made it easier for access for community corrections persons and so on to meet with offenders. The idea that Geoff refers to at Wyndham for an integrated centre makes a lot of sense. As some of your viewers may know, we've recently established a body called Court Services Victoria, which is to provide independent administrative support to the courts, and they're currently looking at the next and most imminent needs for the courts and where there are opportunities to expand facilities, and we're very much looking forward to their report. We've certainly as a government been investing in upgrading and expanding court facilities wherever opportunities arise, not only Bendigo but Wangaratta. We've committed $73 million to a new courthouse and support facilities there. So clearly as any population grows, and Victoria does have rapidly growing population at the moment, we need to make sure there's the infrastructure that's needed for it, not only the transport infrastructure that gets the headlines, but court and justice infrastructure as well, and that's something the government's committed to.